Whoa. Yep. Officially the best intro we have ever, ever had on Chill with Jim. I'd like to thank everyone for coming out and say good afternoon to all of you. Thank you for joining us on this Chill with Jim episode where it is always business up top and pajamas on the bottom. I'm your host, Jim McCarthy, and I am the client advocate for Strix, Louisiana. And it's my job to make sure that everything is chill during the Chill with Jim show. Hopefully, I can bring some laughter and some knowledge along with us. While I'm outside of chill, what I do is I help ensure that our clients are set up with the best software, the best equipment, and the best possible IT solutions to make sure that their businesses are running at optimal efficiency. We also have David DeArmond, owner and founder of Strix Louisiana, with us.
Hey, Jim, Dave Diorman, owner of Strix LA. Thanks for the introduction. Always so full of energy. It's awesome. And yeah, I'm excited about today's episode. Yeah, let's get this thing going.
All right. So before we start, there's just a little bit about Strix we'd like to tell you about. Now, at Strix Louisiana, we believe there's always a better, simpler, more secure way to do just about everything in this world. So, what that means to our staff of super tech heroes is that they are constantly searching and adapting our processes to make sure that we do indeed have the best solution in place. Now, part of this responsibility we do believe is to help educate others out there, our clients as well as to some of the current resources that are out there. We want to bring awareness to any current security risks and just talk about general technology trends in the world today. We also do bring special guests along with us to share their experience, their wisdom, their knowledge. And that's what we have today. We have Sarah Kent with us from King Crow Studios. Sarah, thank you for joining us.
Hi, Jim. Nice to be
Oh,
here.
very good to have you on. Would you tell us just a little bit personal or business background intro about yourself?
For sure. So I've been the producer at King Crow Studios. I've just completed my first full year as a producer full time here. Studied at LSU. Started as an intern with King Crow with undergrad. Did mass comm. Graduated my bachelor's in mass comm in 2018, and then graduated my master's in 2020 in digital media arts and engineering, which is basically just game design. And then I've been working with King Crow during and after school, and started as an associate producer, and now I'm a producer today.
Okay, so how many years is that total?
It'll be a total of four. So
4 years.
started in
Awesome.
June 2017.
Okay. Wow, that's great. That's great. So we have Sarah on with us. We're going to talk about quite a few things today, but one of some of the most important things is that King Crow Studios did just get some big advancements in what they're doing for their clients. So they are doing some virtual reality for the United States Air Force. So we're going to be talking about that a little bit today. We're also going to be talking about some of the cybersecurity things that go along with that. Get to know Sarah a little bit better before we kick in and off into all of that. But we do appreciate Sarah for coming on, and we appreciate all of you for joining us. So, 4 years at King Crow Studios now. Can you just kind of paint a picture of what you started doing at the beginning of that 4 years up until now, and how King Crow has kind of changed their main focus?
For sure, yeah. So when I first actually got started, I was I believe it was a sophomore in undergrad, and I was basically just searching for an internship at a game company originally wanted to do PR for a game studio, but then got really super into the design and development process, and discovered that despite the fact that I cannot program or do art, there's actually a lot of really cool roles in gaming. Specifically, the producer role is what I was aiming for. So all like the designing and planning and just managing the project is what I basically came in with. And Cody and I, he's the founder of King Crow Studios, we're working on Necroball and a few other small game projects, which that will actually be coming out October this year. But we basically started like, straight indie game, getting experience in small projects, worked on some Kickstarters, did some social media here and there since I did have my communication background. And then I want to say it was the summer after my first year of grad school, which was, I believe, summer 2019. The years get a little blurred. But he told me about basically we are in the Nexus Louisiana Technology Park here in Baton Rouge, and they introduced us to some contacts at the Air Force, and basically we're talking about different applications that we could take our gaming experience to. In addition to Necroball, we also had some VR projects that we were working on a little bit on and off. Those are pretty expensive, so they're kind of harder to work on than the 2D games. But we actually had a step system inside of Galactic Chef, which is a VR cooking game in space.
Okay.
So you play with these other chefs, and you're in this like giant arena competition. And the way you have to follow a recipe, you have to follow this checklist. And we basically kind of already had that technology just out of the box, ready to go for the virtual reality procedures trainer. And we were able to, just network a lot and meet a lot of people who got us into this basically scene to, pitch our product and take it to the next level into the virtual reality training. So it actually started as a piece of a video game, and we were able to basically turn that into some dual use technology. But yeah, for the years in between there, pretty much just doing, solo game dev, very small company. And then 2019, things really started picking up into 2020, where we actually were able to get a lot of people on full time, get a lot of people just, dedicated to this project. We went from being less than 10 people to we oscillate between 10 to 15, depending on, how many contractors we have on for projects, but grew at a manageable rate, and then just able to enter this space. In addition also to the DoD, Louisiana Economic Development, LED Fast Start, also has us on a contract with Exxon, and we also use the step system with them too. So it really just kind of entered this space in 2019, and we've just been going full speed ahead because it's been really fun and, just a really great stream of work.
I bet. Like, it's so funny because when we've known King Crow Studios for a few years now, because we were in the same tech park that they are in, and so we've known them for a few years. And like, I would tell my family members, like my little cousins and my nephews and whatnot, like they'd be playing video games, and I'd be like, one day we used to get yelled at and say that you're not going to do anything with, you just sit around and play video games.
Right.
But I was like, what? Let me tell you about this company. Let me tell you what they're doing. And you could get paid and have a job where you make video games. And they're like,
so, Sarah, was that you growing up? Did you get in trouble for playing video games and like, you need to be more serious?
Oh yeah, no, my parents were convinced that games were gonna rot out my brain. I had to convince my mom to let me play Pokemon. I had to convince her that it wasn't animal violence, because I was like, no, they didn't die. They just fainted. It's fine. And then they bought me a PS2. But yeah, no, I've gotten my my DS taken away and put on top of the fridge, and it's like, yeah, get your grades up. But I was like, I'm just doing games. And then now it's hilarious that they're super all about it. And I'm just like, I remember the days where it was turn off the Xbox, but now they're super into it. I mean, they were always supportive, but no, 100%. Whenever I was younger, I mean, there were like jobs in games, but no one really knew that like you could take a game design and development experience and then go work with the DoD. That wasn't really a leap that people were making. But
look at that. Yeah, it's it's awesome to see. It's so fun to talk about the progression of it. Also, just like looking back, yeah, like a few years ago, when would you think that, you know, a video game company would all of a sudden get into very closely working with the United States Air Force? Like,
Yeah, no, it's insane. I mean, we do the meetings with the pilots every week, and it's just like, yep, I work on my games on these days, and I work on the DoD projects on these days. I mean, honestly, it all just blends with management, but still, it's wild going from working on a 2D necromancer soccer style game, and then making virtual reality procedure checklists in the same week.
so what set King Crow Studios apart from other gaming or virtual gaming companies, virtual reality companies that really helped you get in and get this contract and start this type of work?
Right. I would say against companies that are straight simulation companies, and I mean they work on really amazing things in AI and things like that. The fact that we have the gaming experience and the ability, I mean, any game, the goal of it is to hit all end users. So you want your grandma to be able to play it. So having that very simplified user experience is something that we do our best to refine, because we don't want you to have to train someone to learn how to do the training. We want it to be very easy and just easy to use. And then as far as just against other people who are doing gaming in this space, really what sets us apart is our agile development. I mean, we're a small team, and we just take a lot of different management philosophies and meld them together. Like there's no, like, I have a Scrum Master certification, and we do Scrum style meetings, but we don't do them completely by the book. We adapt and change stuff that goes to our development and everything. We're constantly iterating, and we don't lock into a set pipeline. Like we definitely have that organization and that documentation present, but if we find out that, oh, we should use this different code repository, or we should do this different workflow, we examine it and check it, and if it works, then we switch it up.
Okay. Wow, very interesting. So we know more about what kind of sets King Crow apart. Know a good bit about your role at King Crow, even though it's kind of been developing more and more. What have been some of your favorite things about working for this company over the last 4 years?
I would say definitely. I really love agile development, so the fact that we have just such an agile workflow is definitely one of my favorite things. And the fact that if something needs to be changed, I can bring it up and we can check it out. But honestly, and it's a little cheesy, but the people are definitely a huge factor. All my coworkers, we're very like-minded. We have a very specific company culture that we have cultivated over the years, of people who just it's not just you clock in, you make your thing, you leave. We want to make things that are great, and I know that basically anyone that I talk to, I can depend on them. And on top of that, with the company culture, everyone's also very fun to work with. I actually worked from home for a bit from Houston, which is where I'm from. And my mom she had the week off, and she, heard in the background, had to be like, no, these are secure meetings. I'm going to need you to sign an NDA. But she could still kind of hear me from the other side of the house, laughing on calls. I mean, most of these calls that I have with my coworkers, at some point, 5-10 minutes, whatever the length of time is, we take a moment to be people. And I think that honestly influences the quality of our work, because we have that balance. And it's not just, nose to the grindstone from, clock in to clock out. We're people, we treat our people like people, and then they're also extremely capable, and basically have that drive to get things done.
Good answer. So we've talked to a lot of companies, a lot of business owners along the way, just research books and all this. So how do you create that culture throughout? Like, what's one of the ways that King Crow? I see you said so. It's pretty comfortable. You can all be yourselves. So that's one of the ways. But what are some of the other ways that you create this culture of wanting to be the best?
Yeah.
to do the best and to create this ultimate team
and still have fun with it. Still
and
be
still
Right.
have fun.
laughing.
It is definitely an interesting combination of things. There's no real like secret recipe for it. When Cody told me about basically what we wanted to create with the company, I was like, I don't know how we're gonna do this. So there's a few ways that we do it. One of the ways is whenever we hire someone, we always do it in a trial period, so we're able to see how they fit with the team, and that benefits us and that worker, because not everyone is comfortable in a super agile workflow. And then on top of that, just culture fit, etc. So they have that month. We work with them. They work with us. We see how we like each other. And then if it goes well, or like, we all agree that we want to work together, they'll stay on. And then for whatever reason, if, they want to work at a different company, they want something more structured, etc., they have the ability to, get good experience with us. Say that they worked on those projects and, do what they want to do. But yeah, no, during that time, I mean, we have our weekly meetings. We have, a lot of just kind of, we were doing, and we're going to pick it up again. COVID's made it a little bit harder to do, but we do like game nights once a month where we get on and like play games and stuff. But really it's the evaluation, I would say, during that 1 month and seeing how that person works. And that them being able to see how we work typically is the crux of making sure that we're hiring people who fit that culture, because I mean it just fits. The other thing too is we've actually benefited a lot from being super close to LSU. We have a lot of people who we have hired who either I've gone to class with them, or I have
Nice.
I know someone who went to class with them and they can attest to their work. We're pretty close with Mark Avenel at LSU. He is the director of the Digital Media Arts and Engineering program. So we'll also get referrals from him. So it's a little bit of like a character referral, a skill referral. And then for us too, like we specifically look for people, not necessarily who are the best in their field, but who are very teachable, because that attitude typically takes people further than if they say, oh, I know everything about C#. And it's like, you need to learn more about C# most likely. Everything
if you
in
think
C#.
if you think you know everything, you probably don't know everything.
Right. But we have a lot of people who want to take this job and want to grow. And so whether they, they want to move from Louisiana, or I mean, we do work from home now, so that's not really as big of a factor. But let's say they have a goal to work at a AAA studio. We're still, cool with working with people who want to do that, because they can get that experience here, and we can get what we need as well. So just the ability to have people who want to learn and do better. And that also fits with the agile workflow as well, because like learning is iterative, that workflow is iterative, so it all kind of just meshes together.
I like that. I like that a lot. It's funny, like I'll always remember this. I don't remember, it was that profound, I guess. But when I went to go get just a while ago, many years ago, my forklift license, and like the guy was giving the presentation, had been doing safety for years and years and years, and one of the guys that came with us from our company was brand new, never had been on one before, and he's like, I would much rather have you, brand new guy, than someone with 20 plus years of experience that has 20 plus years of bad habits to fix.
Yes.
And I just think about that. Also about the, I mean, if you think what is it, the student realizes, the very novice realizes he doesn't know anything, and it's okay that he doesn't know really anything. The guy in the middle thinks he knows some stuff about some things, and then the master realizes, I don't know anything about anything back
Right.
again. Like, so
Yeah.
It circles back.
Yeah. But yeah, so the moldable clay, moldable clay is very important, I think, in the workforce as well. So we've kind of danced around it. I'd like to kick off and just announce it officially, but we do have a congratulations in place, because King Crow Studios did land a very big contract lately, very big opportunity lately. And I would love for you to share a little bit about that, Sarah.
For sure. So we recently we're awarded a Phase 3 SBIR, which stands for Small Business Innovations Research contract. Um, from the Air Force or with the Air Force. So we're continuing to work with the same end users that we worked with on our Phase 2 contract, and that one was 15 procedures checklists for a total of 30 checklists, since we had to do the pilot and co-pilot side, which was an interesting challenge within a year. And this is basically a continuation of that contract on a much larger scale. So it's got a bigger budget, bigger timeline. We're going to be doing a lot of cool stuff. We're going to be putting, live multiplayer in. So, you could put on your headset and you could turn and you can see the co-pilot and you have those organic interactions. And
Wow.
I mean, ultimately, what this project is, as like the shortest, most concise version of it, is it's the ability to for these end users to be able to take the B-52 home. So they basically have like a Pelican case style computer headset, and instead of having to ground a plane or spend those hours with an instructor having to be there with them physically, now the instructors are still very much involved. But as far as having to have that one-on-one time constantly, they're able to just take that cockpit home, put it on. It's the highest fidelity that we can provide. I mean, it looks insane. There's lots of pictures in our LinkedIn. We've got a video that should be coming out soon-ish. We keep changing the lighting to make it better, so I keep having to make new edits. But it is the ability to take that home and just reduce the cost by a lot and just build up that muscle memory. Because before now, they would have to take the the manual home and do that time. And what you learn from paper and what you learn from actually physically turning those knobs, flipping those switches, seeing the lights come on. We've even got audio feedback. We have a focus mode. So let's say you're like, I don't know where the crosswind crab is. That's fine. Focus mode, you can find it. And then we also have a assessment mode as well. So it's pretty fancy. It's pretty cool, and it is going to be just really awesome in the final product of just combining the high fidelity, the other sections of the plane that we'll be covering, and then that multiplayer. We want it to be very, very comprehensive for these end users.
So you mentioned you guys won this Phase 3 award here. Is that common? Do companies typically win?
No.
Up to Phase 3?
No. I believe that it is less than 1% of all SBIR companies get awarded a Phase 3 contract. I want to say that's the correct statistic. I know it's very, very low. So it's a really big deal. Especially for such a small company to be doing this. It's awesome too that the base we're working with is in Louisiana. We are not the first company in Louisiana to get a Phase 3, but we are one of the very, very few, because again, it's less than 1% of total companies that pitch for these kinds of contracts that actually receive them.
Gosh, that's some good things.
Yeah. So let's just break that down a little bit. So it's kind of a small contract at $6.5 million that they landed with the United States Air Force to replicate the inside of a B-52 bomber, correct?
Yes. Well, the cockpit's already replicated. Yeah.
And so they put the pilots, the U.S. Air Force pilots, they're going to put them into this VR headset. And what King Crow gives them ability to do is to interact with their environment, the same exact environment that's inside of these planes, a B-52 bomber. So to accomplish this before, they had to have these big, huge simulators, right? That they'd build them where people could come in and out. And so very limited amount of how many people you can train in it at once. Now, the other problem was that to get these built involved a lot of involving other companies that are not in the Air Force to build them. And so this is a very long process back and forth. So, they would sometimes build these cockpits. It'd take a year to build them. They'd be finally ready to train in them, and everything inside was different. So now what they have King Crow, the ultimate virtual reality designers, this exact copy of inside of the plane, where the pilots, they're just warming up. They're just doing all their checklists. They're going through the checklist. They're hitting all the buttons. and to get them to interact with like that is just it's mind blowing to me.
Sarah, do you guys run into the same thing? Like you're building it. Obviously, you don't just build this stuff overnight.
Oh,
So
no.
it takes some time. So
Takes a lot of time.
have you guys run into that where you've got the specs of what needs to be built and you start building it out, and then the Air Force is like, oh hey, by the way, we changed that last week. Now you have to go redo stuff.
Somewhat. Usually, thankfully, they don't make a whole lot of changes to the B-52. But we do have those weekly meetings with end users where the manual says, and it says it correctly, but I mean it can be very hard to decipher, especially if you don't have a history of working with planes, because we're basically rebuilding a functional plane, aside from the flying yet. But but you're basically building this functional plane, and yeah, no, we would have stuff where you would mess with some dials and stuff, and it'd be like, oh, actually this light should light up, not that one, or this meter should change this way, or it has to be done in this order, and yeah, we would have to go back and fix it, and that definitely adds to dev time. Thankfully, with meeting weekly and pushing the builds to them as soon as we have them done, has limited having to go back as much, as far as like going back in big chunks. So I would much rather make changes on a shorter schedule than at the end of the month and then getting this like long laundry list of all these things are wrong. No, we meet with them pretty often, but yeah, no, we have to make a whole lot of changes. And we've also even had that too with Exxon. Actually, we had I believe it was the sample collection, but they actually had figured out that the way that they had written out their own procedures wasn't the most efficient, and so they actually had to rewrite it for the VR training, and now they have a new procedure that's better to use. So we have had for VR straight up changes made.
Yeah, what was that discovered because of the VR training and them kind of testing it from that?
Yes.
So that's an added benefit that I guess I hadn't even thought about before.
Yeah. Whenever they because you get so granular whenever you're designing it, and then you get so granular whenever you're testing it to make sure that it's accurate, that whenever they were looking at it, just realized this isn't the best way we could do this. And then they changed it.
That's pretty cool. So can you admit to us here that really you guys are making stuff fly? It's kind of like Ender's Game. Like y'all are. These guys think they're just testing stuff. They're really flying the planes, aren't they?
That would be cool.
Can't talk about that. No.
Right. Super secret.
So, but did you think now, like Sarah Kent talks to Sarah Kent?
Right.
3 years and 2 months ago. Okay.
Sure.
And you tell her that, all right, listen up, Sarah Kent. You are going to be helping save people's lives and worlds by building video games. Would you have believed them?
I would have been incredibly suspect. I would have been like, is this an alternate timeline version of me from perhaps the best timeline?
All the kids out there are like, yes, it can happen. Look,
right, it can happen.
Look,
yeah.
Mom, I told you. 7 hours a day is fine.
Right? Yeah. Oh goodness, yeah. No, my parents got on me because I would actually bust the blood vessels in my eyes from playing for so long because I wouldn't blink. Yeah, I have glasses now that I use for that. But yeah, no, I mean it's crazy. I mean it's crazy even today. I get up and I get in these calls and I feel like I'm being punked. But they tell us that we're doing a good job, and I see the stuff that our developers are able to push out. So, I mean, it is real. It's almost too good to be true, but it very much is the truth. So it's pretty cool. But yeah, no, I not sure I would have believed myself. I would have definitely suspected interdimensional travel.
So everybody understands the reason there's so much funding and trust in this is a little bit of the history here. So they've done various experiments, research along the way. And so they gave some students, what they did is they had the checklists. So, imagine your checklist for a B-52 bomber. It's probably pretty big.
It's
and
really
then think about the cockpit, which has, I don't know how many switches and stuff.
Probably at least 3.
I would say maybe even 4.
Maybe, perhaps.
400 maybe of these switches and stuff. And so what they did is they just gave these students, brand new students, checklists and the procedures, and they said, go have at it with this virtual reality environment. No instructors, you get 20 hours to learn. And then they went that against the students who went through 2 months of instructor-led academic courses, which included like PowerPoints, reading the manuals, lectures, and some video training, like watching videos. And the students who were in the VR did better with their results of 20 hours, no instruction on this VR version of the B-52. Because imagine, I mean, I can just kind of think of it in my head, like, just like when you're playing a video game, you know, for the first maybe 2 hours, you're like crashing the car, figuring out if you can do triple backflips, you know, and you're just kind of seeing what this thing can do. And then once you get that out of your system, like, okay, now I know, like, I know when I do this with the plane, it does this. And I know, you know, so like you really just to get familiar with it through all the mistakes you're going to make along the way, you get to like experience it for real, for almost real. We're very tactile learners, I think, as humans. So like, so this creates that experience with your environment.
That muscle memory, and your
Yep.
your brain is talking to your arms and your hands, and you're actually moving, and that helps create that full understanding. Obviously, if 20 hours of VR training was actually surpassed 2 months of classroom training.
Yeah, yeah, that was very awesome to hear that. So they understand the value, and but yeah, just kind of that's definitely a way I think about it. It's like you have a lot of time to just experience what the plane would feel like, look like, and react like in a much different, you know, just reading about it.
Yeah, you don't learn a lot there.
No, no. So, but yeah, so I wish, and you had a background you were going to put up. Was that of the cockpit? Do you have a picture?
Yes, I do have a picture on my
And
PC.
I think you can share it.
Let me see.
But we'll look at just how detailed the King Crow studio workers, employees are getting on this. It's just intense.
Yeah,
But
it's pretty rad. Here we go. This one's a bit more impressive. Let me save this image. Copy the cockpit. And then ooh, it will let me screen share, so I could just
it will, yeah.
I believe so.
I
think I
would.
can just download this whole
But
those two should be fine. Okay.
because that would be great to see just how detailed they get, like very interesting. So
here we go.
all right, I'll let you do that before I ask you another question. David, did you see this? You've been in technology for a while. Did you see this as a possibility?
Yeah, well,
wow.
Yeah, I mean, I guess when you see the advancement of games, and you see, I mean, obviously this is a step beyond, but just the graphics that you see coming out of video games anyway, and you see the ability of kids that get used to playing these games, and I know me trying to play a game that kids were playing, there was just no way I could keep up. So I can certainly see where, you know, DoD or Exxon or really anybody would be looking for the opportunity to capture what games do for your brain and for training people. I can certainly see where they'd be going after it. And look at this picture. I mean, that is.
Oh yeah, it's intense. So we have, you know, that's not even all the dials. There's all kinds of levers and switches on this side, this side. We do have a video that's going to be coming out at some point, hopefully soon. I'm thinking August. We'll have the lighting down to the point to where we really want to just put that on blast. But yeah, this is pretty much straight up a screenshot from it. I mean, these are the seats, and it
So
looks
those are not photographs, people. Those are
no. This
computer
is
generated.
yeah. This is 100% inside of the Unity 3D engine, 3D models. You know, all of these levers can be moved. That's actually can be twisted. And yeah, no, it's pretty intense. I mean, the lighting's in there because the cockpit is actually like super duper dark. It can actually be kind of difficult to see inside because you only have these windows up at the front. So it can become difficult to look at those dials, and so we have kind of a more neutrally lit version of it for learning because we want the students to be able to to actually find those dials and switches, and then we have one that's basically more realistic of this is what you're going to have to deal with whenever you fly this plane, and that's shadows and just these different ways the light is cast into the scene. But yeah, everything moves, everything actuates. It's actually called, what they refer to it as is switchology, which is how the switches and everything interacts. But yeah, it's pretty intense. It's pretty cool. I usually do the cockpit seats whenever I have my virtual background up, so it's like I'm sitting inside of it. But yeah.
So I mean, you're able. You guys have a program that if the pilot or the co-pilot, if they pull this lever, they're going to see gauges move. They're going to see lights light up.
Yes.
That all of that feedback is going to be coming as if they were sitting there in the plane.
Yep. If you flip the engine switches, the appropriate gauges, move. The appropriate lights turn on. We also have in this top section is where the radios are, and you can turn the dial and you can change the channels. These screens
so the sound is all sound is fully interactive. So you'll hear the engines charging up and stuff.
Yes, you will. Yes, it's super cool too. The starting engines checklist is pretty rad. But yeah, you hear it, thrums up. You also have the screens which actually they have exterior cameras on the plane, and you can actually turn the dial and you can actually see outside of the virtual environment because we have the cockpit, but this plane is actually inside the virtual environment on an airfield, so you can actually see the runway. You can even like move the environment around them so that it feels like they're taxiing. And then whenever they have the air refueling portion, we also have some clouds moving. So we've simulated as much as we can other than actual flight at this time. But yeah, no, it's
Awesome.
super hooked up. And even having to show like what happens if stuff goes wrong. And then let me see, I don't believe I have an image handy, but there's a section which you can kind of see here, where all the fuel lines and stuff goes, and you can actually see a visualization of how the fuel flows between the dials and how those are all interacted. It's pretty interesting.
That is cool.
So
yeah,
awesome.
and I like the little. I assume that's an Easter egg, or do they really have a crow with a crown on it?
That's an Easter egg.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah, that's our old school logo. The first logo that we had, so we put that in there, and it's also on the outside of the plane because they have that art on all the planes. It's that very vintage look.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's pretty cool.
So you guys can like program problems into this as well. Like if
we could.
If a fuel line gets cut or something like that, you could see the fuel draining out or whatever it would do. I have no idea what it would do.
Right.
And then the pilot, the co-pilot, they have to take actions to respond to that.
Yes, no, we could do that. That would be more under emergency procedures, which I believe is one of the points of this big contract. We basically made them a menu, and we said, whatever you want out of these things. But yeah, no, that would be definitely doable. Of creating problems within. Currently, though, it's just the straightforward checklist for the first basic learning.
But, how long does it take to make something like this?
So our artists worked really hard on this, and the majority of it was done within 2 months.
Wow.
2 long months. But
Yeah, that is such a phenomenal amount of detail. I feel like
oh
it would
yeah,
take forever.
it took them the number of hours in those months were pretty high, and then from there we've polished it up. The majority of it so far has been lighting, but we've done texture changes. They've been like, oh, this label should be this color instead of that color, or
Right.
we need this very small detail modeled instead. But yeah, no, majority of it in 2 months, and then we've done some just basic upkeep since then of requested changes.
Are you able? I'm especially looking at the dials and or the gauges up there
Mhm.
in the front. So are you able to kind of create that once and then create an instance for each one uh, for each gauge that you need, or do you have to create each one individually? Does that make sense?
No, that makes sense. I wasn't super duper involved in the hookup of this. It's more of something that would be in our lead engineers
Yeah,
wheelhouse. I do know that Unity has prefabs. I want to say that anything that could be, because we try to reduce duplicated work,
sure.
anything that could be have that same kind of functionality. Yes, we did translate it over laterally, but there were a lot of pieces that needed their own prefab of like, this is this gauge interacts in this one specific
Right.
manner, so we have to make it new. But we
Okay.
utilized prefabs where we could, but a lot of it is very specific work.
Yeah. Can see why you need a game developer for that, though.
Oh
'Cause
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks like some of those games out there that are so detailed and just beautiful games. Um, you need that if you're going to build an environment where people can learn from that environment.
Definitely. I mean, that's why we have all these different modes. The checklist too is really cool. You can snap it to both hands. You can snap it into position, so you're not having to hold it and do your stuff. You can actually put it by the window or put it in the middle. Different things like that of just small quality of life things that gamify it. We also have a really cool. One of our programmers, Brian, worked on it. It's one of my favorite things. It's a small detail, but it's great. And whenever you push a button correctly, there's like this little animation that will play, and it's like these little like yellow lights, kind of like I would almost describe it as like a tiny little explosion. But it's pretty cool. But yeah, it's just some like very small quality of life things that basically like the light comes out kind of the way like whenever you click a button on a website works. It's better if I had the animation, which unfortunately I don't off the top of my head.
Yeah.
It's so far back in our chats. But we do have just different ways of providing feedback to that user of, yes, you clicked the right thing, or you found the right thing. Our focus mode, it actually like changes the color of the cockpit, so it has kind of like a blue overlay, and then whatever you're looking for is highlighted yellow. And we even have an arrow that will direct you to it, so like you'll turn your head and the arrow will continue to move and be like, yep, it's right there. There it is. Because I mean, even just like, this is blocked by the seats, but there's just so much in there.
Yeah. So, do you have basically levels of difficulty? So, on the beginner level, then you have those nice arrows that lights up, but
Yeah,
on advanced, you got nothing. Like you got to
basically.
nail it.
Yeah, we have basically like learning mode, which you can do focus mode, and you have a kind of more detailed checklist with like all the stuff that you need, and then we
Awesome.
have the assessment mode where you just do your thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so like some of the key factors here you've seen, just quality, first of all, for them getting this contract, the quality, the amount of work, the detail they're able to put in there was huge. We talked about kind of the how they got here, but what were some of those other key factors in really being able to open a video game company, virtual reality company like yourselves, to do DoD contracting work? Were there hoops you had to go through? Are there regulations you had to hit?
Oh, for sure, for sure.
Okay.
I mean, there was a lot. The amount of paperwork that Cody had to fill out for the pitch for the phase one was, it was a lot. There's just so much information that you have to provide. In addition to that, the cybersecurity requirements, especially for working with something like the B-52 cockpit, is fairly high. So CMMC, which is the Cyber Maturity Model Certificate, it's a
It's
those
awesome. You
get
acronyms.
never remember that.
75% right away just for getting the name right.
Awesome.
You get 75% right.
Nice. But yeah, that should be coming out at some point in the future, and that is, you know, a standard of security that we will have to reach. It's very comprehensive. It's basically it's supposed to be the new way of how we will be, you know, assessing ourselves as DoD contractors. To make sure that we're protecting this information, because there's varying levels of classifications. We deal primarily with just, you know, controlled unclassified information, which is a little bit easier to deal with, but you still have to keep, you know, super secure. There's all of these different, you know, subscriptions that we have to different places of storing things, you know, AWS GovCloud, Prevail, etc., just to make sure that all this stuff, you know, stays in our hands and not the wrong hands. And in addition to that, just, you know, standard cybersecurity through the NIST framework that we're required to have this contract. And again, that goes from, you know, securing our facility, making sure that, you know, we have ID badges for guests, make sure that, you know, I had to tell, you know, all of our employees, you know, we need to have a clear desk policy. You know, if you have an external hard drive, you got to put that away. You don't want to have guests coming over and being like, what's this? You know, especially if, you know, you work on a cool project like this, and just various things that we've had to do. I would say specifically that the cybersecurity portion of it has been the biggest hurdle, mostly because it's the most expensive. And then, you know, on the other side, you know, heavy documentation. I mean, specifically on this phase 3, part of my spin up for it within these first few months has been figuring out, you know, what is the template that I'm going to make for our reporting that meets the standards of the DoD, because, you know, every month they want to know, you know, what are you doing? Because, I mean, it's government money. So, I mean, it's good that they're asking. But you know, detailed plans, etc. There's a whole lot of planning and documentation that has to go specifically into this kind of project that does get audited by those end users. So you have to be super organized, and that applies to the cybersecurity side as well. You definitely need to know, you know, where your documents are, and you know, distribute those policies to the team and make sure that they understand, because they're not super fun to read. So I do read them to the team and be like, okay, any questions? And you know, you get a whole lot. So
Wake up! Are there any questions?
literate.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah,
It's
I
like,
try to
what's
ask it
more,
kind of in the middle.
what's worse, the flight like manual or the cybersecurity requirements manual?
Ooh, that's a hard question, because I had to type the majority of that flight manual because we couldn't copy it out of the PDF, because it was a secure PDF. But we needed to have the manual in the you know, in the sim. So having experience with both, I mean, they're equally tedious.
Wow. And you know,
I think it's control number 218 that is to make sure that your mom is not standing behind you during the meeting. That 218, I think.
There's so many control families. It gets really intense. Thankfully, too, a lot of our stuff, because we are like this very agile, modern company, we do most of our stuff via cloud. So I'm not having to manage a server farm, thankfully. It's all done by AWS. I don't have to worry about it.
So folks out there, you remember we did an entire episode about the CMMC. We have had special guests on about this before. So David, tell us just some of the involvement that you and Strix played into getting ready for the CMMC, getting King Crow Studios ready with all this fun documentation, and now debated what's worse, a flight manual or a cybersecurity manual.
Yeah, I mean, well, Sarah and I have spent a whole lot of virtual time together going through the documentation, and of course she's been just phenomenal in getting it all together and really laying out for us what they need in order to accomplish it. But we've learned a ton going through this process, and it's helped us become a better, more secure company as well. It's been one of the most rewarding experiences, business experiences that I've had, just because you there's so much of it, but you chip away and you chip away and you chip away and you get kind of toward the end of it, right, Sarah?
Right.
Or not to the end, but toward the end of it, and it's like you can really see how much you've done. So it's very rewarding, and it does. You mentioned, the Air Force is making you fill out all this as a taxpayer. You kind of want to see that. Like,
Oh yeah.
I'm glad, that they're making sure you're actually doing your work, and they're making sure that this data is secure. That feels good as a taxpayer.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, no, it's very secure. But yeah, no, it is great though, breaking it down to chunks. I mean, after we finished those, oh God, it was 16. Those 16 control documents for CMMC that we went through was so satisfying to scroll through those at the end and be like, yes. These hundreds of pages of cybersecurity documentation.
Yeah. What's David and Sarah doing? They're talking about CMMC again.
Yeah. Yeah, and figuring out these different, extremely granular requirements, like, managing the warranties for your PCs and then putting them on a separate VLAN if they're out of warranty, which, okay. It's like, we can do that.
That's been really fun, because you mentioned it earlier. You guys are more of an agile company, a young company, and so a lot of the information is in the cloud. A lot of the policies, the requirements were written at a time where that wasn't used very often.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so the requirements are all about kind of the old way of doing things, but we're doing things in the new way, and so working and understanding, well, how do we accomplish the same level of security but in a new environment?
Yeah, no, it's been really great, honestly, to be able to fill stuff out that way, and also just to see the different ways of like working with y'all and being able to make those custom solutions. Because a lot of the stuff that y'all have offered us, specifically, like Perch, telling us about Prevail has helped us to be able to maintain that like modern, agile pace. And then as far as those policies, it's been hilarious. I mean, I remember we read that one section that said that we had to secure our microfilm.
Right.
And I was just like, okay, am I working on a DoD project or playing Metal Gear? I don't like. I gotta keep this information from the Patriots. I don't know.
Our microfilm is secure.
Right. Yeah. I also had a reporting requirement that I was reading the other day for this P3, and they said that the report needed to be typewritten, and I was just like. It was like typewritten or legibly scripted, and I was just like, when was this approved? And I saw the date was 2006, and I was just like, okay, I think someone might have copied and pasted it into the new one and been like, this is good. They're all typewritten, computer keyboard, that's typing. But it is cool seeing the stuff's a little bit dated and then adapting that to the modern.
Yeah. Oh, and that's what I love thinking about this. So like when you start projects like this and you get new ways of doing things and you invite, this is like a brand new thing that really hasn't been fully brought to fruition before. I think I was doing research about the grant and the company, but the Air Force has kind of had this idea for over 10 years. They've been thinking about doing this. It just hasn't been. The technology, the knowledge hasn't been able to keep up with that idea, that dream until now. But what this opens up, and you talked about it a few times along the way, but it gets this whole new perspective on the people who are actually experiencing so the pilot, you're working with the pilot and the students.
Yeah.
So that means you're interacting with the very, very end product. Like the very, very end result. So you get to see all those little things that maybe who designed it doesn't know. Right. Oh, this you have here that it blinks red, but at first it does actually blink a yellow one first and then a red. So now I'm confused. I don't know if that means something else, if I can turn my engine on or not. But like it breaks everything down to where you're working with their big ideas people over here about the virtual reality, but in everybody's now in contact with that. Like if it's at a manufacturing plant, they're in contact with the person who makes the machine. And now the person who makes the machine knows the best way to run this machine, and is telling the higher up and the new people like, well, if you guys just did this, it would
Right.
actually make it a lot faster. And they'd be like, but it creates this culture of all of the levels throughout the organization communicating very detailed. And then I thought about when you're talking about the requirements or the cybersecurity things, it's going to open up those eyes to like, when was this thing written? Why are we using cybersecurity things that
Right.
like you need a Pentium 2 processor with 2K of RAM? Like this is no, this
Yeah.
can't be like. So along the way, you're going to find those things that need to be changed, that can be made better, more simpler, more secure. But like I love this, just breaking it down to that fact, because I think you will. Like you talked about adding the explosion light. Like if it's something that kind of gets your attention more often, then maybe the Air Force is gonna be like, these gamers, they keep putting in this cool stuff. Or you know what? The gamers told us that the cockpits are really dark.
Right.
They are really dark. I didn't really just ever notice it. I just kind of expected it. But why don't we put some lighting on in here? Like I think it's gonna create this huge blossom of
Innovation, really.
innovation, a community
Yeah.
of innovation.
Because you could take. I mean, Sarah, you guys could add light to it, and you could try different colors, and the Air Force wouldn't have to go through the process of actually going and fitting a light there, and they would get to see the end product before they actually have to create everything in between, and so maybe that helps them make faster, better decisions because you guys are able to create it without actually them having to build it.
Oh yeah, I mean, like that's why VR is used for a lot of architecture stuff now. You can walk through your house and be like, I want my kitchen to be, on the right side of the house instead of the left, and preview that change. So yeah, no, there's definitely the ability to do that. And then as far as the stuff that's changing in technology, even now the headsets that we started with are out of date. But what we
Wow.
do to solve that is we're hardware agnostic. If you have computer, we will run this.
I like that a lot. That's really good. Hardware agnostic. So we've heard, so there's a bunch of security measures along the way. Have there been any major hurdles? And then also, can you talk to us just a little bit about what the new contract is going to kind of mean for King Crow Studios and what your outlook is on that?
For sure. As far as hurdles, I would say that, other than the cybersecurity, the cost of technology to develop is pretty high, especially with, I mean, anyone who's trying to build a computer this year knows that it has been really hard
Yeah.
to procure parts. And then, and for the DoD, we can't just hop on Amazon and be like, oh, I'll take, this processor or whatever. We have to go through, a manufacturer, or, we go through y'all. But still, the cost of the parts is so variable. And on top of that, getting good PCs for the pilots, which thankfully they handle on their side, but the length of time they have to wait to get it approved, to get the budget justified, to, the security, all of that, is really intense and does slow it down a little bit. But we speed it up wherever we can, partially by being hardware agnostic. So if they turn around and say, hey, you can't use this headset because, of X reason, let's say it's Bluetooth compatible and it needs to not be, they have the ability to change that up without increasing their cost as far as having to ask us to redevelop things. And then as far as what this contract means for us, I mean, it means everything. This is the biggest step that we've taken so far. It's opened so many doors. I mean, the number of emails that we got after that press release was so intense. We actually had to go and get I'm researching a CRM so that we can make sure that we respond to everyone and keep track of them. We've got 4 guaranteed years of work, which is freaking awesome. To be able to have that, especially as a small company, it's really just improved our quality of life. We're super excited to be working on it. I'm really glad that we're continuing to work with Barksdale too. Like, just all the things this is opening up and all of the capability that we'll be able to show, specifically with the phase 2, which is what this art is from. I mean, it's also part of the phase 3 as well, because it's the same plane. But I mean, that being done within a year, those are supposed to be prototypes, and what we produced was basically an end product. Like, yeah, we're sustaining it within our P3, but this is far beyond what was expected. I mean, of those 30 checklists that we provided. So hopping into this arena and hoping to blow people away again and just show like, yeah, this is the maximum that we can provide is super exciting. So yeah, no, that this contract right now is everything to us.
I love that mentality. You just got me excited. All right.
Yeah, it's super cool.
Wow. And this is like a huge step for virtual reality.
Oh, for sure.
And just like to be implemented like this, I think this, we can look back at this Chill with Jim episode.
Right.
And we can be like, that's when those pilotless airplanes started taking off.
Yeah.
It was that day, 7/13/2021. Whoa. No, but yeah, just like it really is, it's a huge deal. Like, we're very, very happy for you. It was awesome to see it happen, but also just so excited to see where this blossoms. Like we said, we've created now this think tank of really, really great thinkers to see what new solutions we can come up with. Do you have any future things on the roadmap for King Crow Studios that you'd like to mention besides this? Yeah.
Yeah, so Necroball, which is the first game that the studio ever worked on, which I worked on in undergrad and into grad school with my independent study, is going to be coming out this October. We also have our VR game Hive Slayer, which we're going to be porting to the Quest. That was actually a game that was basically kind of like a fun side project. It's something we're releasing for free, or it's already released for free on Steam and the Oculus Store for the wired headsets. That project specifically we like to mention because we're based in Louisiana. I have family in Lake Charles. Cody's directly from Lake Charles, and Lake Charles has had a year to put it lightly, as far as just the natural disasters that have been just affecting the city. As far as that game being released for free, we have a donation page set up that we're donating to the I believe it is the Southwest Foundation for Louisiana. I took a look at that charity. As for me, I lost my house in Hurricane Harvey in Houston in 2017. But they focus on not just providing immediate relief, but the funding for rebuilding. So I try to plug that whenever I can. But yeah, Hive Slayer, we're gonna be putting that on the Quest in the hopefully near future. Taking care of that port right now. And then as far as like our industry stuff, I mean, we're continuing to pursue contracts. The phase 3 is amazing, and it's also giving us the ability to actually pursue more, believe it or not, even though it is this very large body of work, because it's teaching us to iterate faster and develop faster and have this framework that we create basically like internally that can be used for anything. So if anyone has a checklist, any kind of checklist, we can make it work in VR, whether that's working at a plant, on a plane, tying off, etc. We just have so many applications, and we're continuing to pursue those both within traditional industry spaces, so like energy, plastics, etc., and also within the DoD.
Yeah, so y'all don't plan to stop after 4 years. Like
oh no,
you do this and then you're done, right?
No, we have to build our VR empire.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we're also continuing to work on those. Yes. And then we're also continuing to work on those VR games mentioned. So they're currently in various stages of development. But Galactic Chef, the game that helped open all these doors and kick this off, is also still in development. I don't currently have an expected release date, but the art looks good. I mean, my goal is to have it look, and it's not a realistic looking game, but to look as stylized and just polished as this B-52. I've even told the artist, I'm like, I know it's a different style and it's more cell shaded, but that wow factor of people putting on the headset and being like, this is real.
Yeah.
Is something that I really want us to hit.
Awesome.
So awesome, and we're just thrilled for how far you've come. We're just thrilled to be along with you on this journey for sure, David. I know we had seen them at the tech park for quite a while and wanted like really and liked what you were doing as a company. David, did you? How excited are you about this?
Yeah, I'm super excited just to work with King Crow because I've known Cody for several years, and we would meet up in the hall, and he's one of those guys that he's always got big ideas, and to watch somebody take a big idea and put the pieces together and work, and now those big ideas are coming to fruition. I love being just involved with that. So it's thank you guys for letting us be involved with it, and we are absolutely looking forward to a very, very bright future.
Yeah.
Oh yes, no, for sure. I mean, it's been awesome working with y'all. I mean, y'all are my favorite people within the cybersecurity space. Being able to share your knowledge with me and resources, and help guide me along the way, because I have no cybersecurity background, or at least I didn't. Now I do. Now I've got a year and a half.
You got a lot.
Yeah, I had a crash
You're pretty darn good
course.
at it now.
Thank you. But no, I mean, being able to work with y'all has been just super awesome. And I look forward to continuing with it, because I feel like y'all have the same mentality of, let's figure out what the best is and meet it and exceed it.
Yeah.
So
Perfect.
Well, thank you so much, Sarah, for joining us and telling us about this journey. And congrats to all the success you guys have had. And I know it's not the end, so congrats on the future success as well. We would like to, if anybody has any last minute things to ask Sarah, drop it in now, or forever hold your peace. So thank you, Sarah. We are going to say thank you to everyone out there for joining the Strix team on Chill with Jim and supporting us and giving that time to us to join us. We have done 63 episodes as of today. Right? It's 63 today, or is it 64?
Yeah, I think 63, 64, somewhere along there.
Yeah, so we've really enjoyed spreading the tech knowledge and helping others. We love having the special guests on, but unfortunately, all good things must end. And so this will actually be officially the last Chill with Jim for a little while, at least. See, we got to bring the cat up.
yeah,
Bring the cat, sympathy cat.
She came up to cuddle. So if I didn't let her up, she'd start screaming. So
she can tell that Sarah's affected by this emotionally. So it's a sympathy move. The cat jumps into your lap to comfort you during this time that we are going to. But we're just moving on to some bigger and better,
iterate, pivot,
simpler things. What'd you say, David?
I said iterate and pivot.
That's it.
We're working on some new things.
Working on some new things. COVID opened up this door. It was a great tool along the way, but I do believe that a lot of us have kind of gotten more busy with life and work again all of a sudden. So we loved it while it was going on, and who knows, we might be back one day. David, did you have any closing words you wanted to say before?
No, just we are working for or on some big things coming up. So while it may not be Chill with Jim, keep your eyes open, because we're gonna still be doing some things out there. But I'm excited about where we're going. So
yep, and still feel free to reach out to us, Facebook, LinkedIn. I'm missing one.
YouTube.
Thank you. The thing that we're on. You can watch old episodes, check out any of that knowledge we've talked about, and reach out to us anytime. I was a hockey player growing up, so there's this time when Wayne Gretzky, the greatest hockey player that ever lived, was traded from the Oilers to the LA Kings. And Wayne's getting interviewed for the first time after he found out he was being traded, and like he goes to talk and then he gets choked up and like wipes a tear and he's like, I promised Mark Messier I wouldn't cry. Well, I promised David I wouldn't cry, so I'm holding it back. It has been so much fun for me. I really just have enjoyed it. And to see the amount of support and people that joined us along the way has just been phenomenal. So thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
And we will see you next time, maybe.